Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
It's always a privilege to be asked to feed the sheep, as says. And I have the message I have prepared for today is in the blacksmith's hands.
Okay.
So this is actually something, a concept I shared with a couple of people, and everybody I shared it with was always blessed by it. So I developed it a little bit more. So the main scriptures is first Ephesians 2, verse 10. For we are his workmanship, created in Christ Jesus, unto good works, which God hath ordained that we should walk in them. I have before ordained that we should walk in them.
Yes.
So that he already knows the works that he has for us, the things, the plans that he has for us, how he wants to use us, and what he wants to do with us. And then Isaiah 2, verse 4, and he shall judge among the nations, and shall rebuke many people, and they shall beat their swords into plowshares, and their spears into pruning hooks. Nation shall not lift up sword against nation, neither should they learn war anymore. So they're taking weapons and turning them into tools to be used for peace and for prosperity purposes. But then in Joel 3, verse 9 and 10, the word says, proclaim ye this among the Gentiles, prepare war, wake up the mighty men, let all the men of war draw near, let them come up. Beat your plowshares into swords, and your pruning hooks into spears, let the weak say, I am strong. So here in those verses we see the opposite, where it goes from being a time of peace to being a time of war. And we know David writes in the Psalms, he has trained my hands for war, that a bow of steel is broken in my arms. So in Ecclesiastes, he writes that there's a season for everything. It's a season for peace, a season for war. And the Lord is in charge of what time it is for what purpose it is. And so the concept is that we are a workmanship of the Lord, and the blacksmith, we're the work of his hands.
Amen.
So I have actually a couple of props then, just to create more of a visual. The first thing that you think of a blacksmith is someone that makes weapons or armor, and for that they need steel. So they have like the ore that comes out of the earth, which is nothing extravagant. It's metal, but it's got dirt and carbon and rock and all kinds of other stuff that we don't need. What we would also be known as the dross, that has to be taken out before it can be used. Otherwise, it's just some ugly-looking thing. All right, and this is the part of the Christian walk where we're in the world still. We have not yet been saved. We're full of the dross. We're full of the rocks. We're full of all this dirt and stuff that has to be removed from us by the blacksmith, by the Lord. He has to purge us from that and remove that stuff from us so that we can be used. Then, once we get saved, then now we're a Christian, we're walking in the Lord, but we're just this brick of steel that has not yet been formed or has any shape, it's just a brick. That it can be done, anything can be done with this. It can be molded into a sword, a plowshare, a pruning hook, a spear, whatever the Lord so desires to do with us, depending on the time and the season that it is, he will decide what to do with that brick of steel. And again, this is when we're first saved. We don't know, we just come to church and we haven't had a ministry, we haven't done anything yet, we just come and accept Christ and we're ready to be used, but haven't been put to use yet. And then the next stage is the anvil and the hammer, which I have a picture on the screen of a handout, but it's kind of harder to see it in the handouts here. I'll just pass those around, you can keep those. On the screen you can see it's a bit clearer, where there's a piece of glowing hot steel that's put on an anvil and that's being stricken with the hammer to mold it into the shape that the blacksmith wants it to be. And here it looks like he's making a sword, where he's taking that brick and hammering it down into the shape of that sword. And the main point is that this is the part where we're being prepared for our calling, for what the Lord wants to do with us. He's molding us and shaping us for the ministry, for the purposes that He has for us. And if you look at that piece of metal, it's glowing.